Hey everybody, this is Curran Mulvihill, CEO for Elementium Games, and I'm going to walk you through a little bit of how Ether Legends trading card game works on the physical side of it. I've gotten a lot of questions of, what are the mechanics? What do the attributes do? How does this really work? And one thing I want you to keep in mind right off the bat is that this game is in development. We definitely, the foundation is there, the physical game is there. There's been thousands of hours put into testing and simulation. So as far as it being fair and balanced, we are really, really close. As far as the gameplay elements, we are really, really close. But I just bring that up so everybody understands where we're at and showing you this kind of sneak preview of the game itself. So basically, I'm going to go through just kind of setting up your cards and just a few examples of interactions of what does what on the cards. And sorry for the glare, I know they're laminated. They've taken a lot of abuse over time, so we laminated some of these cards. Either way, so I apologize for the glare, but so basically on each card you have 5 different abilities, okay, and here's 4 of them. And the 5th, and these are what we call the base abilities, and the 5th one is healing. And then you have your hit points or your health on the right-hand side. And then at the top you have attack, which is your base attack. You have strike, which is a powerful attack. You have defense, and you have evasion, okay? So a couple other key features to point out on the cards is that and excuse me here while I find my thumb, right here, this defines what the element card is. So for example, this green is defined by earth, and it's an earth element. Over here on the right-hand side is actually the class, and this one in particular, this is Kravis the Peed Longbody. He is of the Protector class. And each one of these cards actually have a special ability. Now, if you look at this one, Sapper of Life, you can swap heart, which is your hit points, with an opponent of your choice. In order to use, so let me clarify, every special ability for every single card is different and has a strategic advantage one way or the other during gameplay. So, a legendary has something different. This guy, the Ipslip Dragon, each one of these has a unique special ability. And how you use a special ability is actually through the power-up of physical Elementium. And I'm sure everybody's going, what? So, for example, let me just show you. Each card actually gets 3 Elementium, unless it's a legendary or unless it's of an epic rarity. And what I mean by that is that, for example, if you take a look really close, you see these teeny tiny little E's that are behind Kravis here, and they might be a little more apparent. Like if we go to, Willie and the Peed, this one actually has 5, and that identifies how much Elementium is required to use your special ability power-up. Of course, for Legendary, it actually costs 5 Elementium to use that special ability because it's typically of greater strategic advantage or power. So in the event I would use a special ability, I would actually, take away my 3 Elementium, and then, 3 turns later, every time it's my turn, I actually add an Elementium back to regain my power-up, and then once I have 3 again, I can use my special ability. So that's kind of how that turn-based aspect is formulated into a power-up. So let's talk a little bit about the base abilities. So in attack it's typically a weaker attack, and it's a base ability. Your strike is typically a little bit stronger of an attack, and defense is somewhat self-explanatory. I'll get into that in a second, which is one of your defensive moves, and evasion is actually also one of your defensive moves. So, and then you have healing, of course, let's not forget about that. So you can play any one of these abilities And that's where the significance of choice comes in to play the game, and why it has such strategy involved. Now, the cards are very dynamic and diverse from one another, based on their elemental power. There's a lot of things that go into why the statistics are the way they are. So defense on Kravis, the Pied Longbody, for example. Defense is a direct mitigation for strike. And evasion is actually a direct mitigation for your attack. Okay? So the other thing about defensive moves is that they can actually be cast or played at any time, meaning if my opponent attacks me with, let's say, a +5 strike, he hits me +5 strike, I can use my defense and mitigate that attack entirely. And then it's my turn to actually attack. So I don't lose a turn for playing defensive moves. However, doing a base attack, a strike, or a heal actually does take your turn. And, there are counteractive abilities and special abilities that can actually interrupt a heal, or, so on and so forth. So I have these die here. These are 20-sided die, and colors of them are irrelevant other than I have an abundance of them. But this has actually been our method for keeping track of hit points. So you set your die, to match your hit points, and then if you end up taking a hit, you hit me for 2, I now have 10 hit points. So it's a simple way to keep track of your hit points, and kind of keeps it entertaining and engaged. Another element to this game, aside from your base abilities, is maybe you're asking, how do you fit in the item cards? How do those even come into play? For the digital game, this is a totally different animal because you have endless scalability and expandability. So keep in mind, for the physical game itself, we're limited in some aspects, but not from depth and strategy. So in the base game, so optionally, I can play just with these 3 champions, or I can actually add one of these item cards. And how it works is that if you look on the bottom left there, right here, it says +2 healing. You'll notice everything else on this item card is actually grayed out, and this corresponds with the relative location of the card and its ability itself. So if I were going to play this, and bear with me just a sec while I lift up this card, if I was going to set my game up first and play with these item cards, I can play with 1, I can play with all of them. And again, this is totally optional, but it adds depth elements and strategy to the game. So this actually adds +2 healing to my base healing ability. So it gives Kravis, the Pied here, it gives him an additional +2 to his healing as his base statistic. So that's one element. If I had, I'll just get rid of this. And you can play with multiple if you want to play with an offensive or defensive. But you'll notice the placement, like I said before, the placement of each one of these actually corresponds with the location. So this one, for example, adds strike. So if I were to have this under this card here, you would notice that strike will actually line up. So instead of having a base strike of of 2, this actually adds an additional +2. So then when I do my strike against my opponent, it would actually account for +4 strike. So many aspects of the game. I just thought I would give you at least an overview and a preview of kind of the mechanics and the abilities of how the game works, and we'll definitely continue bringing videos out to the community so everybody can have a better understanding of what this is all about. So thank you again for the time, and hope to hear from everybody soon.